I was up at 1:30 this morning. I've chanted a good number of rounds this morning. How many here have already chanted 16 rounds? How many here have already chanted 32 rounds? So you're halfway there, plus. Fantastic. But some devotees probably have not participated in one of these events. So for those of you that have not participated in one of these events, few things. Standard for events like this is Monavrata, which means other than you're taking care of your children, you don't do two things. Have conversation. So like as soon as class is over, and then I just added another one. It's the standard, but it's standard. It should be standard. Please, pretty please, minimize the use of your little mobile phone, because that's another kind of communication. What you have to do, you have to do, but please, pretty please, with sugar on top, and whipped cream and icing, leave it off, and leave it, not in your hand. You saw that slide. So the purpose is, to fulfill the purpose is, let us try to, one thing, Vyavasayatmika Bodhi Ekeha Kodanandana, one thing, Krishna's holy name. And for those of you that have not taken part in an event like this, it's not just about number counting and no worries. Whatever the number is, that's what the number is. And the number can be 5 million. Don't worry about it. Don't pat yourself on the back. Whatever the number is, the number is. And strive for attentiveness and repeating something from yesterday. Adarat, with great respect. And all the other nice things. You can take a break from time to time and look at your notes, or sit back and with the things that you've heard to get inspiration. So you take 10 deep breaths and then start again. Whatever it works for you, stay focused. Make your best effort to stay focused. Now, I'm going to end with those little messages and say that by design, this class is really short. So I hope you are looking forward to a short class by design, so that we can just get back to our chanting the holy name. I want to make a correction from something I said yesterday. I quoted by Sheshaga Prabhu, knowing what he said, but I said it a little different the way he said it, but I should say it the way he said it. His phrase is, where attention goes, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. That's the standard Vaisheshika Prabhu phrase. I said, where intention goes, energy flows. Ask, or those that are very concerned about language. I'm looking at Atmani Vedana. Language is important. I knew what I was doing, but I said it anyways, and I'm correcting it because I should repeat what he said. There's not a zillion worlds of difference between attention and intention, but his phrase, for the record, where attention goes, enter to the holy name. Let your intention also go to the holy name. Be happy. So the title for this morning is Hear with the Spiritual Ear. What does that mean? Because the phrase comes from Bhakti Siddhanta. Hear with the spiritual ear. Well, it has something to do with the very first verse of Shikshastaka, Cheta Darpa Namarjanam. Cheta Darpana, mirror Darpana, Marjanam, cleansing the mirror of the mind. Cheta Darpana Marjanam. That is to say, not only there, but there's material senses, and what Bhakti said, well, I'm going to read what he wrote, so you can hear it explicitly, but I'm paraphrasing now. There's a covering, and there's who we are. And we are who we are, we're not the covering. The tendency is to identify with the covering. And then the perception through the material senses and mind is material, including that which isn't material, like the deity, the name, the book, the devotee, those carrying bhakti, the devotee. We see them in a material way, tendency, conditioned tendency. And the advocacy of Bhakti Siddhanta is to hear with the spiritual ear, which means after the covering, so we're not there yet, but after covering has been cleared, then there's something remaining. There's spiritual form, and there's spiritual ear, and there's spiritual mind, and there's spiritual intelligence, and there's spiritual form, there's spiritual everything. And that's who we are. So he's advocating here with the spiritual ear. Here with the spiritual ear. And it fits with the message that we've been sharing so far, beyond mechanical. So here's a nice photograph of Bhakti Siddhanta. And what I'm going to be reading from is a letter. He just as Srila Prabhupada wrote letters, and those letters are printed in a letters book, at least the ones that were recoverable. Prabhupada may very well have given instructions in letters that are not in that book because they're too personal, private. But there's a letters book. So Bhakti Siddhanta disciples gathered his letters and they published his letters. And they're available in digital format, and here's one of them. This is December 18th, 1928. Doesn't say who it's to. Patravali, that's the publication. So here goes. Bhakti Siddhanta writing to a disciple, which means to all of us. The name of the Lord and the Lord himself are not two separate entities, but one. That's clear. When the sound of the holy name passes over the lips, the conditioned sense of hearing and the conditioned consciousness initially process the sound as if it were material. And that is how it is perceived. As a result, only the external ear hears it. Now that's okay, because it's transcendental, and even if it's only the external ear that hears it, it's beneficial. There's a little video clip that I'm not going to play this morning because of time, but Srila Prabhupada is in the Brooklyn Temple, and I remember very clearly the class that he gave, and it was just a little clip from the morning class, Bhagavatam class, and Prabhupada is describing how the Hare Krishna movement began, and he said it began from chanting. In our street Sankirtan, that's his phrase, street Sankirtan. It doesn't matter if they understand, it doesn't matter if they're attracted, it doesn't matter anything, because it creates auspiciousness. That's the phrase, he said it 6 times. It creates auspiciousness. So even if one doesn't, even you're hearing with the material ear and you process it as something material, so it's okay, because it's going to act on the seat of consciousness, on the soul, and clear the coverings. Next paragraph. Since the other senses, other than the ear, other senses and the mind, which is the collector of sensory experience, are envious of the ear. I don't normally think of the other senses being envious of the ear, but that's what he's writing. Which they consider to be an equal partner. He's placing the ear above the other senses and the mind. The result is that such chanting does not affect the cleansing of anarthas. Period. Now, some cleansing is going on. The auspiciousness is being created, and the auspiciousness helps with anartha nivritti, at least modestly. Next. We do not have the capacity, even theoretically, to know that the name and the Lord of the name are one. And we can theoretically say, yes, yes. But then he's saying to know is, an experience. Then, just as piercing of the ear is one of the Vedic rites for a young child, some of you know, young child, boy or girl, it's a ritual, piercing of the ear. Similarly, when our spiritual ear has been pierced by the holy name, the other senses give up their envy of the auditory sense. Yay! So importance to the ear, our entryway into controlling the mind. His writing is very similar to Rupa Goswami's. We discussed it, the Vedanta Madhava glorification of the holy name. Remember that one? How much nectar are in the two syllables Krishna? I cannot say. Who can say? So the glories. Then the vibrating part of the body, the mouth, and then the ear, and then entering to the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the mind. So the mind can be conquered by the ear, and specifically the spiritual ear, meaning it may take a while to get the coverings removed so that the spiritual ear is the instrument that's hearing, because otherwise it will be processed as like something material. Like the worship of the deity and anything else, the scripture, and the devotees, and prasadam. Not material. Paragraph. No. They, that's the other senses and the mind, no longer quibble with the ear, which alone can perceive transcendental sound. Then the flood of prema pours forth from all the spiritual senses and cleans away the contaminants of opposition and malice. This is Bhaktisiddhanta. Thereafter, the Lord's beautiful form, qualities, associates, and pastimes are revealed in the name, capital H, Himself. So for those who are very qualified chanters, like the classic example from Rupa Goswami's life, when he was absorbed in chanting, just like we might be absorbed in chanting or trying to be absorbed, he was so absorbed in just chanting Mahamantra that pastimes of Krishna were being enacted within his heart. He wasn't trying for that. He was absorbed in chanting, and doors opened, and he could see and experience not verses from the Bhagavatam or passages from the Bhagavatam, but in present time and space. He was experiencing pastimes of Radha and Krishna. in his heart or in his mind, or Cheta Darpana Marjanam. And experienced by the chanter as something quite distinct from his previous experiences in the mundane world, then the kinds of worries and distractions of the mind that are typical of the conditioned living being cannot remain. It means same as Rupa Goswami. The mind becomes conquered, and the senses become inert. Based upon hearing. And that hearing, there's a connection between the hearing and who we really are, or the heart. Heart meaning, in this case, where the soul resides. Final. When we learn to hear as we chant, the opportunity to remember Krishna will automatically arise. So, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Repeatedly in scripture, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu or Vismartavya Najatachet. Remembrance, the activity of smarana is honored and praised, and so how do you get there? It's not just memorization, it's hearing. Hearing with the spiritual ear. So our senses are covered, the mind's covered, etc., etc. Hear with the spiritual ear means striving to make, as we're going to be attempting today and the rest of our lives, striving to connect with Krishna and feel some affinity for him, specifically accessed through his name as the recommended method for this age. And then he describes the Ashtakaliya Lila. For those of you that are a little newer, there are, each day in Krishna's Lila is divided into 8 parts. So 24 hours, divide 8 into 24 hours, that's how many hours each part is. And it's a practice for some that during this time of day we meditate on this type of Krishna's pastimes, that part of day meditate on that type of Krishna's pastimes corresponding to the parts of the day. So while you're experiencing the movements of the sun throughout the course of the day and night, the mind can also follow Krishna's pastimes. So he's making the statement, that happens naturally. I'll read the sentence. And there's no need to practice it artificially. It'll happen in and of its own accord. At that time, Ashtakaliya Lila Smarana will become possible. There's no need artificially to try for it. But we should constantly pray to the holy name for his, capital H, for his mercy. So that's our opportunity. You could say it's our challenge. There's a nice ear, and there's the sound of Krishna's name, and that the ear hear the sound of Krishna's name as the sound is being made. And even there isn't taste, or there isn't something, because the ear is still hearing with the material affinities. So by practice, by mercy, then it may become possible for the connection with Krishna to become something that we experience. Because Krishna hears, we may not be aware that Krishna hears, but Krishna hears his name. We hear the chanter chanting his name, so that the connection is established. And as the mind gets closer by the process of hearing itself, then the experience of that connection can become ours. And there's just 3 more slides and we're done for this morning. It's got some nice graphics. By cultivating our connection with Sri Krishna in his vachaka, that's the sound, gradually and naturally we will be invested with a potency which will touch and transform our hearts and the hearts of others in amazing and unprecedented ways. So that it sinks in, there's another set of graphics, a little different, but it says the same thing. By cultivating our connection with Sri Krishna in his vachaka form, this is a phrase or term that Bhaktisiddhanta used a lot, the sound form of Krishna. Gradually and naturally we will be invested with a potency which will touch and transform our hearts and the hearts of others in amazing and unprecedented ways. So connecting this message with Bhaktisiddhanta's message, there's the spiritual ear. And initially we'll not be hearing with the spiritual ear, so the transformation isn't going to be the same. Something, but not the same. Something, but not the same. So what do we need to do? We've been hearing so many things, what we need to do. So do those many things. And then give attention to the ear hearing with respect and all the other things that we've been hearing. Looking up with respect to the sound of Krishna's name and the process of chanting. And one more time, and that's it for this morning. By cultivating our connection with Sri Krishna in his vachaka form, gradually and naturally we will be invested with a potency which will touch and transform our hearts and hearts of others in amazing and unprecedented ways. And we'll be invited into the spiritual world, or carried into the spiritual world by the sound of the name. It's a nice painting. It's a Vrindavan Das painting. It's Govardhan Hill in the background and a path leading to Govardhan Hill between us and the Govardhan Hill. And there's Krishna ready to receive us. So whatever efforts, visual, or I like visuals, but anything that helps you sit before the deity. We'll make arrangements for tulsi plants to here and there, and other supports. There's going to be, I hope, there's a series of slides crying for Krishna. Whatever works for you. And happy journey. And it's 8 o'clock, it's 8:04, it's time to end. So, reminder, Mauna Vrata. And those that have not, those that are satisfied or have felt that the number of rounds you'd like to chant today is met, there's going to be a little gathering. You follow the schedule and find out where that little gathering is for those of you that would like to have a little association and some encouragement and some feedback and those kinds of things that's in the schedule. You're going to make some announcement, short and sweet, right?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we just have a few announcements for this morning. Firstly, thank you, Maharaj, for so much preparation and all of the things that you've been telling us to practice for the last few days. As Maharaj just kindly reminded us, please observe Mauna Vrata for the rest of this morning till our 64 rounds day is completed. So please refrain from unnecessary speech and use of mobile devices. Prasadam will be served at 9 o'clock this morning. For children ages 5 to 12, there will be a trip to Phillips Park leaving at 9:30 this morning. And there's been a youth session arranged with Govinda Prabhu at 9:30 on the third floor. So we request youth to participate in that. That's all for this morning. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki, Nama Sankirtan ki, for Premanandi.